The rich smell of garlic and truffle oil filled the air as Lily moved between tables with practiced grace. Her black uniform blended into the restaurant's dim lighting, making her almost invisible to the well-dressed customers who barely looked up when she refilled their water glasses. That was fine by her. Being unseen meant she could listen, and at Bellini's the conversations were often as rich as the food. Tonight was busier than usual. The New York Philharmonic had just finished their season opener, and half the city's music scene had flooded into the restaurant for late dinners. Lily recognized many of them from magazines and concert programs she'd collected over the years. "Another bottle of the Barolo, please," said a woman in a sparkling dress without making eye contact. She was deep in conversation with a gray-haired man Lily instantly recognized as Thomas Reed, the director of the Manhattan Music Institute. "Right away," Lily replied, though she doubted the woman heard her. As she headed to the wine cellar, she overheard snippets about an upcoming piano competition. Her fingers twitched involuntarily at the word piano, a habit she'd never been able to break. In the cellar, away from watchful eyes, she allowed herself 5 seconds of fantasy. Her fingers moved through the air, playing invisible keys to a piece she'd been struggling with all week. 5 seconds of being who she really was before returning to who she pretended to be. The restaurant closed at midnight, but it was nearly 2 before Lily finally unlocked the door to her tiny apartment in Queens. Her roommate Zoe, a night shift nurse, would be at work for hours still. The emptiness was a blessing. Lily kicked off her shoes, changed out of her uniform, and sat down at the keyboard that occupied most of the small living room. No grand piano, not yet. Just an electric keyboard she'd bought secondhand 3 years ago. The keys were slightly yellowed and one of the pedals stuck sometimes, but it was hers. She placed her fingers on the keys without pressing down, feeling the cool plastic beneath her fingertips. 6 years ago, Lily had been headed to music school with a partial scholarship. Then her dad got sick and the medical bills piled up. Her college fund vanished overnight. She deferred her admission, intending to save up and go the following year. But her dad needed care, and her mom couldn't do it alone while working full-time. 1 year turned into 2, then 3. The school held her spot as long as they could, but eventually they gave her scholarship to someone else. By the time her dad passed away, music school seemed like a distant dream. Her family was drowning in debt and Lily needed steady work. The restaurant job paid the bills and the late hours meant her days were free to practice. She pressed down on the keys, beginning softly so she wouldn't disturb the neighbors. The piece started simply enough, a melody like raindrops, gentle and clear. Then it built, growing more complex with each measure. Her left hand created a rhythm while her right danced across the higher notes. This was her own composition, something she'd been working on for months. Without formal training, Lily had become her own teacher. She watched online tutorials obsessively, studied theory books borrowed from the library, and listened to recordings until she could pick apart every note. When tips were good, she treated herself to one lesson with different teachers, soaking up as much knowledge as she could in a single hour. What she lacked in classical technique, she made up for with raw passion and a unique style all her own. Her music blended classical structures with modern influences, a bit of jazz here, a touch of folk there. It wasn't traditional, but it was beautiful. The clock read 3:30 a.m. when she finally stopped playing. Her fingers ached pleasantly and her mind felt clear for the first time all day. Sleep came easily after that, deep and dreamless. Morning brought reality back into focus. Lily scrolled through job postings while eating cereal at their tiny kitchen table. She needed more money if she ever wanted to buy a real piano. Maybe she could pick up some breakfast shifts at a diner, or find weekend work at one of the music stores downtown. Zoe stumbled in from her night shift, dropping her bag by the door. "I heard you playing last night when I came in to grab my phone charger," she said, pouring coffee from the pot Lily had made. "That new piece is really coming along." "You think so?" Lily asked, looking up from her phone. "I'm still not happy with the middle section." Zoe shrugged. "Sounds perfect to me. But what do I know? I can barely play hot cross buns on the recorder." "You're just being nice, and no, I'm being honest. You're wasting your talent serving overpriced pasta to snobs who don't even say thank you." It was an old argument, one they had at least once a month. Lily sighed. "We've been over this. I can't just quit my job to chase some childhood dream. I have bills to pay, and so do you. If I don't make rent, we're both in trouble." I know, Zoe yawned. But I saw a flyer at the hospital. There's an open mic night at that new coffee shop on Steinway Street. You should sign up. With what time? I work every night. Ask for a night off. One night won't kill you. Lily shook her head. Maybe someday. That's what you always say. Zoe wasn't wrong. Lily had been saying maybe someday for years now. But the thought of performing in public made her stomach twist into knots. What if she wasn't good enough? What if all this practice was for nothing? At work that evening, Lily moved through her usual routine. Take orders, deliver food, refill drinks, clear tables. The mindless repetition allowed her thoughts to wander, mentally practicing the tricky sections of her latest composition. She was clearing a table near the bar when she overheard a conversation that made her pause. The problem with young pianists today is they all sound the same, a woman was saying. They're technically perfect but soulless. No originality. That's because originality doesn't win competitions, replied a man with a British accent. Judges reward precision, not creativity. Lily recognized the woman as Diane Chen, a renowned piano instructor whose students regularly performed at Carnegie Hall. She slowed her movements, stacking plates carefully to hear more. It's killing the art form, Chen continued. When was the last time you heard someone play and felt genuinely moved? Not impressed, moved, the man laughed. Probably not since we were students ourselves. Exactly. We need fresh blood. New perspectives. Lily's hand trembled slightly as she picked up a water glass. New perspectives. That's what she had, wasn't it? No formal training meant no one had ever forced her music into traditional boxes. Her approach was entirely her own. Excuse me, said another customer, snapping her back to reality. Could we get our check? Of course. Right away. As she hurried to the register, Lily's mind raced. What if these people, these gatekeepers of the classical music world, actually heard her play? Would they dismiss her immediately for her lack of credentials? Or would they hear something worth listening to? The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. That night, she practiced longer than usual until her fingers cramped and her eyes burned from exhaustion. She recorded herself on her phone, listening critically to each passage, making mental notes about what to improve. The next morning, Lily made a decision. She would take Zoe's advice and sign up for the open mic night. One performance just to see how it felt. No one from Bellini's would be there. It was just a neighborhood coffee shop, nothing fancy. If she made a fool of herself, at least it wouldn't be in front of the very people she hoped might someday take her seriously. She texted her manager, asking for Friday night off. The reply came quickly. First time in 2 years. Must be important, covered. It was settled then. Friday night. She would play for an audience for the first time since high school. The thought sent a jolt of nervous energy through her body. She had 3 days to prepare. The restaurant seemed different that night. As she moved between tables, Lily studied the customers with new eyes. These weren't just wealthy diners. They were her potential future colleagues, competitors, mentors, people who might someday listen to her music with real attention, instead of as background noise to their meals. A famous conductor left her a generous tip without looking up from his phone. A quartet of music students barely had enough to cover their bill, but thanked her profusely. A retired opera singer complained about her steak being overcooked. They were just people, Lily realized. Talented, successful people, but still just human beings with good days and bad days. The pedestal she'd put them on wasn't quite so high anymore. As she walked home that night, a light rain began to fall. Lily didn't open her umbrella. The cool drops felt good against her skin, washing away the restaurant smells and the day's fatigue. For the first time in years, she felt like she was moving forward instead of standing still. Her keyboard waited for her at home, patient and promising. Tomorrow she would practice her piece for the open mic. Tonight she would simply play for the joy of it, letting the music take her wherever it wanted to go. What Lily didn't know yet was that her double life was about to collapse in on itself. The worlds she had kept carefully separated were on a collision course. And when they finally met, nothing would ever be the same again. Friday arrived faster than Lily expected. The coffee shop on Steinway Street was small but welcoming, with mismatched furniture and local artwork covering the walls. A simple keyboard had been set up in the corner, nothing fancy but adequate for the open mic night. The place was already half full when Lily arrived, and her name was 5th on the list. First time? Asked the barista, A friendly woman with gray-streaked hair pulled into a bun. Lily nodded, her throat suddenly dry. "Don't worry, honey. It's a good crowd here. They just want to hear something real. Something real." Lily could do that. She found a seat near the back and watched the first few performers. A guitarist with a folk song, a poet with verses about city life, a saxophone player who closed his eyes when he hit the high notes. Then they called her name. Her legs felt wobbly as she made her way to the keyboard. The small crowd watched with polite interest, expecting nothing special. Just another amateur with a hobby. Lily sat down, adjusted the small bench, and placed her fingers on the keys. She had planned to play something simple, something safe. But sitting there, feeling the weight of expectation, or lack thereof, she changed her mind. Instead, she began playing the piece she'd been working on for months, the one that poured out of her soul on those late nights after work. The first notes were tentative, almost apologetic. Then her confidence grew. Her left hand found the rhythm, steady as a heartbeat, while her right hand brought the melody to life. The piece built slowly, adding layers of complexity, drawing the listeners in note by note. Lily forgot where she was. She forgot to be nervous. Her fingers flew across the keys with a certainty that came from countless hours of practice. The music filled the small space, bouncing off the walls, wrapping around the audience. When the final note faded, there was a moment of complete silence. Then applause, enthusiastic, genuine applause. Lily looked up, startled back to reality. People were smiling, some nodding in appreciation. "That was beautiful," said the barista as Lily returned to her seat. "Your own composition?" "Yes," Lily admitted. "I've never played it for anyone before." "Well, you should play it for a lot more people. You've got something special there." The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Several people approached Lily afterwards, asking if she performed regularly or had any recordings. She answered their questions with a mix of surprise and embarrassment, unaccustomed to such attention. On her walk home, Lily felt lighter than she had in years. Maybe Zoe had been right all along. Maybe it was time to stop hiding her music. The weekend flew by and Monday brought Lily back to Bellini's. The restaurant seemed unchanged, but she felt different. The memory of Friday night's performance gave her a quiet confidence as she moved between tables. "Did you have a good weekend off?" asked Carlos, one of the other servers, as they folded napkins before opening. "I did, actually," Lily replied. "I played at an open mic night." "No way. Like your music? The stuff you're always humming?" Lily nodded, surprised he had noticed her humming. "That's awesome. How'd it go?" "Better than I expected. People seemed to really like it." Their conversation was cut short as the manager, Vincent, called the staff together for the pre-shift meeting. He looked more stressed than usual, his normally perfect hair slightly disheveled. "Change of plans tonight," he announced. Anton called in sick. Murmurs spread through the staff. Anton was the restaurant's pianist who played Thursday through Monday evenings, providing elegant background music for the diners. "Tonight's important," Vincent continued. "We have a private party in the back room, some fundraiser for the symphony. They specifically requested music during their cocktail hour." He ran a hand through his hair, making it stand up even more. "I've called 3 different agencies, but nobody's available on such short notice." The staff exchanged glances, unsure why they were being told this. It wasn't their problem to solve. "So," Vincent concluded, "we'll just have to manage without music tonight, unless anyone has any brilliant ideas." The room fell silent. Lily's heart pounded in her chest. She thought of the open mic night, of the applause, of the barista telling her she should play for more people. But this was different. Playing at Bellini's meant performing for the very people who dominated the world she desperately wanted to enter. "I could do it," she said quietly. Before she could talk herself out of it, all eyes turned to her. "You play piano?" Vincent asked, eyebrows raised in surprise. "Yes," Lily replied, her voice stronger now. "I've been playing most of my life." Vincent looked skeptical. "This isn't like playing chopsticks at a family gathering, Lily. These are sophisticated guests who expect professional quality." "I know," she said. "I studied piano before." She trailed off, not wanting to get into her whole life story. "I can handle it. Classical, jazz, whatever you need." Vincent glanced at his watch, clearly weighing his limited options. "All right," he said finally. "You can play during the cocktail hour. If it goes well, you can continue. If not," he shrugged, "we'll say the regular pianist got sick." Lily nodded, her stomach clenching with a mixture of excitement and terror. The party starts at 7. Be ready. The rest of the afternoon was a blur of preparation. Lily helped set up the dining room as usual, but her mind was racing through potential songs to play. Anton typically performed a mix of classical pieces and jazz standards. Nothing too obtrusive, just elegant background music. She could do that. She had spent years studying those very pieces. At 6:30, Vincent pulled her aside. The guests will arrive soon. There's a spare shirt in the office you can change into, something more appropriate for performing. The shirt turned out to be a simple black blouse, more formal than her server's uniform but still understated. Lily changed quickly and made her way to the baby grand piano in the corner of the back room. She sat on the bench, adjusting it to her height. The keys felt different from her keyboard at home, heavier, more responsive. She played a few scales quietly, getting a feel for the instrument. It was beautiful, perfectly tuned with a rich, resonant sound she could only dream of producing on her electric keyboard. The first guests began to arrive at 7 sharp. Men in expensive suits, women in cocktail dresses and statement jewelry. Lily recognized some of them from previous dinners: conductors, benefactors, music critics. Her hands trembled slightly as she began to play. She started with Debussy, Clair de Lune, a piece she had played so many times she could do it in her sleep. The familiar notes calmed her nerves as the room filled with people holding champagne flutes and making small talk. No one paid her any attention, which was exactly as it should be. She was providing atmosphere, not giving a concert. She transitioned smoothly into a Chopin nocturne, then a gentle jazz standard. The music flowed effortlessly as her confidence grew. An hour into the event, Vincent caught her eye from across the room and gave a small nod of approval. Lily allowed herself a moment of pride. She had passed the first test. As the cocktail hour wound down and guests began moving to their tables for dinner, Lily prepared to end her performance. She decided to finish with a piece by Einaudi, contemporary but still appropriate for the setting. She was halfway through when she noticed a man standing nearby, listening intently. Unlike the other guests, he wasn't engaged in conversation or looking at his phone. He was actually listening to her play. Lily faltered for a split second before recovering, her fingers finding their way back to the melody. The man continued to listen until she finished the piece. When the final note faded, he approached the piano. "That was lovely," he said. "Einaudi, yes? But you gave it your own touch." "Thank you," Lily replied, unsure what else to say. "I don't believe we've met. I'm David Reynolds." The name hit Lily like a physical force. David Reynolds, the renowned composer and director of the New York Chamber Orchestra. She had read about him in music magazines, listened to his compositions, watched interviews where he discussed his vision for making classical music more accessible to new audiences. "Lily Chen," she managed to say. "I'm just filling in tonight." "Well, Lily Chen, you play beautifully. Are you with the conservatory?" "No," she admitted. "I actually work here. As a server." His eyebrows rose slightly. "A server? And they asked you to play tonight?" "The regular pianist is sick." I volunteered. David seemed genuinely surprised. "That's unexpected. Where did you train?" The question she had been dreading. "I'm mostly self-taught. I was supposed to attend music school years ago, but life got in the way." She expected him to excuse himself, to walk away with a polite nod and immediately forget her. Instead, he studied her with increased interest. "Self-taught? And you play like that?" He gestured toward the piano. "Would you play something else? Something of your own, perhaps?" Lily glanced around the room nervously. Dinner was beginning and she was supposed to be done. "I don't think I should. The event is my event," David said with a small smile. "It's my foundation's fundraiser. One more piece won't hurt." Lily's heart raced. Play one of her own compositions? Here, for David Reynolds? It was both a dream and a nightmare rolled into one. "Please," he added. "I'm curious." Lily turned back to the piano. Her fingers hovered over the keys for a moment before she began to play the piece from the open mic night. The one that felt most like her soul translated into sound. The conversation in the room didn't stop, but it seemed to quiet slightly as she played. The piece was different from what she'd performed earlier, less structured, more emotional, blending classical techniques with contemporary elements. It wasn't background music. It demanded attention. When she finished, David was silent for a long moment. "Fascinating," he said finally. "Truly fascinating." We should talk more, Lily Chen, but I believe my dinner is about to be served. He reached into his pocket and handed her a business card. Call my office tomorrow. I'd like to hear more of your work. And then he was gone, rejoining his guests at the main table, leaving Lily staring at the small piece of cardstock in her hand, hardly believing what had just happened. The unexpected opportunity had arrived. Now she just had to be brave enough to seize it. Lily stared at the business card for the 5th time that morning. David Reynolds, Artistic Director, New York Chamber Orchestra. It felt surreal, like she was holding a golden ticket to a world she'd only observed from a distance. Her fingers hovered over her phone, hesitating yet again. Just call already, Zoe said, watching her from the kitchen table. You've been pacing for an hour. What if it was just politeness? Lily asked. What if he didn't really mean it? Zoe rolled her eyes. People like that don't give out their business cards as a courtesy. He wouldn't have asked you to call if he didn't want to hear from you. Lily took a deep breath and dialed the number. A professional-sounding receptionist answered, and Lily's voice came out higher than usual as she explained who she was. To her surprise, she was put through immediately. Lily. David's voice was warm with recognition. I'm glad you called. I was hoping we could meet to discuss your music further. Are you free this afternoon? 3 hours later, Lily found herself in a sleek office building near Lincoln Center. The receptionist led her to a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. David greeted her with a firm handshake and gestured for her to sit in one of the modern leather chairs facing his desk. I can't stop thinking about what you played last night, he said, skipping any small talk. It was fresh, innovative, yet clearly grounded in classical foundations. How long have you been composing? About 4 years, seriously, Lily replied. But I've been playing around with melody since I was a kid. And you're entirely self-taught? No formal training at all? I had lessons as a child, and I was accepted to the Williams Conservatory with a partial scholarship. But then my dad got sick and... She trailed off, not wanting to seem like she was asking for pity. David nodded, seeming to understand the unspoken part of her story. Life happens, but you kept playing, kept learning on your own. That takes extraordinary discipline. It wasn't discipline so much as necessity, Lily admitted. Playing is how I make sense of things. David leaned forward, his expression serious. Lily, I believe you have a unique voice. The music world is full of technically perfect pianists who all sound the same. What you have is different. Raw in places, yes, but authentic. Lily felt warmth spreading through her chest at his words. I'm starting a new program at the Chamber Orchestra, David continued. We're calling it New Perspectives. The idea is to showcase emerging artists with unconventional backgrounds. He paused. I'd like you to be part of it. Lily blinked, sure she had misheard. You want me to be part of your program? Yes. It would involve performing one of your original compositions at a showcase concert next month, alongside 3 other musicians, but I don't have credentials or a degree or... That's precisely the point, David interrupted. This program is about finding talent in unexpected places, breaking away from the traditional path. It sounded too good to be true. Why me? Lily asked. There must be thousands of musicians in this city with unusual backgrounds. Because when you played last night, you weren't trying to impress anyone. You were simply expressing something honest. He smiled. Also, I have excellent instincts about these things. It's why they pay me the big bucks. Lily laughed, despite her nervousness. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Come to our studio tomorrow. Play for me and my colleague Patricia. If she agrees with my assessment, we'll move forward. 24 hours later, Lily found herself in a practice room at the Chamber Orchestra's studio, facing David and a stern-looking woman with short silver hair and piercing blue eyes. Patricia Wu was legendary in classical music circles, a brilliant pianist. In her youth, who had gone on to become one of the most respected music educators in the country, the baby grand piano before her was even more impressive than the one at Bellini's. Lily wiped her sweaty palms on her pants before placing her fingers on the keys. Whenever you're ready, David said kindly. Play whatever you feel best represents your work. Lily closed her eyes for a moment, centering herself. Then she began to play her most ambitious composition, a piece that moved between delicate melancholy and surprising bursts of energy. She poured everything into it, all her years of waiting tables, all the late nights practicing, all her deferred dreams and quiet hopes. When she finished, David was smiling broadly. Patricia's expression remained unreadable. Technically, there are flaws, Patricia said finally. Her voice was crisp, matter-of-fact. Your left-hand position could use work, and your pedal technique is inconsistent. Lily's heart sank. However, Patricia continued. There's something compelling in your composition. An emotional intelligence that can't be taught. She turned to David. She's rough around the edges, but there's potential there. David's smile widened. So you agree? She'd be a good fit for new perspectives? Patricia nodded reluctantly. With intensive coaching between now and the showcase, yes. Excellent. David clapped his hands together. Lily, welcome to the program. Patricia will work with you 3 times a week to refine your technique. The showcase is 4 weeks from now. Lily's mind reeled. 3 times a week? I'm not sure I have my job at the restaurant. You'll need to make arrangements, Patricia said flatly. This opportunity requires commitment. Later that evening, as Lily cleared tables at Bellini's, her mind was elsewhere. How could she possibly fit Patricia's coaching sessions around her work schedule? She couldn't afford to quit. Her portion of the rent, her student loans from her brief time in college, her mom's medical bills. The financial pressure was constant. She was so lost in thought that she nearly bumped into Vincent, who was watching her with an odd expression. Sorry, she said quickly. Is everything all right, Lily? You seem distracted tonight. She hesitated, then decided to tell him the truth. I met with David Reynolds today. From the fundraiser the other night? Vincent's eyebrows shot up. The David Reynolds? What did he want? He's offered me a spot in a new program at the chamber orchestra. For emerging musicians, Vincent stared at her. Are you serious? That's amazing, Lily, I know. But it requires a lot of training sessions, and I don't know how to make it work with my schedule here. Vincent frowned thoughtfully. Let me see what I can do. Maybe we can adjust your shifts. The next morning, Lily arrived at Patricia's studio for their first session. The older woman didn't waste time on pleasantries. Play the piece you intend to perform at the showcase, she instructed. Lily began to play. Patricia stopped her after just 30 seconds. No. Your hand position is causing tension in your wrist. See how you're collapsing here? She demonstrated the problem. Again, from the beginning. The next 2 hours were the most intense musical education Lily had ever received. Patricia was demanding but precise, identifying problems in Lily's technique that she'd never noticed before. You have natural instincts, Patricia acknowledged grudgingly at the end of the session. But instinct only gets you so far. The rest is disciplined work. Lily left feeling both exhausted and exhilarated. This was what she had missed all those years. Professional guidance. Someone pushing her beyond what she thought she could do. When she arrived at Bellini's that evening, Vincent called her into his office. I've worked out a new schedule, he said. Lunch shifts only Tuesday through Saturday. It's fewer hours, I know, but it should give you the flexibility you need for your training. Lily felt a rush of gratitude. Thank you, Vincent, really. Don't thank me yet, he replied with a wry smile. I'm not entirely altruistic. When you become famous, I expect you to tell everyone your career started at Bellini's. Over the next 2 weeks, Lily's life transformed into a grueling routine. Mornings at the restaurant, afternoons with Patricia, evenings practicing alone. Her fingers ached, her brain buzzed constantly with music, and she survived on too little sleep and too much coffee. But for the first time in years, she felt truly alive. Then came the day Patricia introduced her to the other musicians in the New Perspectives program. There was Ben, a cellist who had learned to play in prison. Ava, a violinist who had grown up in foster care and taught herself using YouTube videos. And Thomas, a percussionist who had created his own instruments from recycled materials. They were fascinating people with extraordinary stories. They were also clearly intimidated by the opportunity before them, all except Thomas, who seemed to view everything with cheerful confidence. So, he said during their first break, how'd you end up in this fancy program, waitress girl? David heard me playing at the restaurant where I work, Lily replied, unsure if he was being friendly or condescending. Lucky break, Thomas remarked. Hope you can handle the spotlight. What's that supposed to mean? Thomas shrugged. Just that some of us have been hustling in the underground music scene for years, playing hundreds of gigs, putting ourselves out there. And you got picked because you happened to serve the right table. The word stung, partly because Lily had been thinking the same thing herself. Was she really deserving of this opportunity? Or had it just been blind luck? Before she could respond, Ava spoke up. Ignore him. Thomas thinks suffering is a competition. She smiled at Lily. We're all here because someone saw something special in us. That's what matters. That evening, as Lily practiced in the small studio Patricia had arranged for her, doubts crept in. Thomas's words echoed in her mind. Had she just been lucky? Would she crumble under the pressure of the showcase? Her phone buzzed with a text from David. How's the preparation coming along? The board is excited to meet all of you next week. The board. Lily hadn't even thought about that aspect of the program. Of course, there would be important people evaluating them, deciding if this experiment was worthwhile. She stared at the piano before her, suddenly feeling like an imposter. Who was she to think she belonged in this world of serious musicians and powerful institutions? She was just a waitress who played keyboard in her spare time, but then she thought of her dad, who had always believed in her talent, who had worked extra shifts to pay for her childhood piano lessons, who had been so proud when she got her scholarship. You have a gift, he had told her. Don't let anything stop you from sharing it. Lily straightened her shoulders and placed her fingers back on the keys. She had been given a chance that most people never get, a door cracked open to the life she had always wanted. She couldn't let fear close it again. She began to play, pushing aside her doubts note by note, measure by measure. Whatever happened at the showcase, at least she would know she had tried. That she hadn't given up on her music, even when life made it the easier choice. As the melody filled the room, Lily made herself a promise. She would walk through that door with her head held high, ready to face whatever waited on the other side. The board meeting was held in an elegant conference room with views of Central Park. Lily had never been in a room with so many powerful people before. The table was filled with Arts Foundation directors, wealthy donors, and influential music critics, the kind of people who had previously only existed to her as names in newspaper articles or on donor plaques. David introduced each of the 4 New Perspectives musicians, giving a brief background on their unconventional paths to music. When he came to Lily, she felt a dozen pairs of eyes examining her. And finally, Lily Chen, a pianist and composer whose talent I discovered quite by accident when she was filling in for the regular pianist at Bellini's restaurant. One of the board members, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses, frowned. A restaurant pianist? That's a far cry from the concert hall, wouldn't you say? Actually, David replied smoothly. Lily is normally a server at Bellini's. She was merely helping out that evening. Her primary occupation has been in the service industry, which makes her accomplishments as a musician all the more remarkable. The room grew uncomfortably quiet. Lily felt heat rising to her face. I see, the man said, his tone making it clear that he didn't see at all. And what formal training do you have, Ms. Chen? Lily cleared her throat. I was accepted to Williams Conservatory but was unable to attend due to family circumstances. I've been self-taught since then. How interesting. His smile didn't reach his eyes. And you believe you're prepared to represent this prestigious institution on stage? Before Lily could respond, Patricia stepped in. I've been working with Lily for the past 2 weeks. Her natural talent is exceptional, and she's making rapid progress with formal guidance. I wouldn't have accepted her into the program if I didn't believe in her potential. Coming from Patricia, with her reputation for brutal honesty, the endorsement carried weight. The board member nodded reluctantly and turned his attention to Thomas, who launched into a confident description of his musical background. After the meeting, as they filed out of the conference room, Ava fell into step beside Lily. Don't let Henderson get to you, she said quietly. He questioned all of us like that last week when you weren't here. He did? Lily asked, surprised. Ava nodded. He's old school. Believes the only path to classical music is through elite conservatories and famous mentors. David's program challenges everything he stands for. Then why is he on the board? Money, Thomas cut in, joining their conversation. His family foundation gives millions to the orchestra every year. He glanced at Lily. You held your own in there. Maybe you're tougher than you look, waitress girl. Lily couldn't tell if this was an insult or a compliment. Before she could decide, David approached them. Well done, all of you. The board is cautiously optimistic about the showcase. He smiled wryly, which, believe me, is high praise coming from that room. Now back to work. We have less than 2 weeks left. The next 10 days were the most intense of Lily's life. Patricia pushed her relentlessly, drilling her on technique for hours each day. Her hands cramped, her back ached, and some nights she fell into bed still hearing Patricia's voice. Again from the beginning. Focus, Lily. But amid the grueling work, something magical was happening. Her playing was transforming. Notes that had once been merely correct were now infused with intention. Phrases that had felt awkward now flowed naturally. Patricia was reshaping her technique without changing the emotional core of her music. You have raw talent, Patricia told her after a particularly good session. But talent without discipline is like a river without banks. Powerful but directionless. We're building those banks now. Slowly, Lily was also forming bonds with her fellow musicians. Ava was easy to like with her quiet determination and kind eyes. Thomas remained prickly but had stopped making snide comments about her lucky break. And Ben, the cellist, was beginning to emerge from his shell, occasionally sharing stories from his time in prison where music had saved him from despair. One evening, after their individual sessions, David suggested they try playing together, not their showcase pieces, which would be performed separately, but something collaborative and unplanned. Just listen to each other, he said. See what happens. What happened was magical. Thomas began with a gentle rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. Ben joined in, his cello providing a deep, soulful foundation. Ava's violin added a soaring melody, and Lily found her hands moving across the keys, filling in harmonies that complemented the others perfectly. They had never rehearsed together, never discussed what they would play, yet somehow they created something beautiful. When they finally stopped, all four looked at each other in amazement. That, David said into the silence, is why I chose each of you. You don't just play notes, you listen. You respond. You communicate through music. For the first time, Lily truly believed she belonged in the program, not because David had chosen her, or because Patricia approved of her progress, but because in that moment of spontaneous creation, she had been an equal part of something extraordinary. The feeling of belonging lasted until the final rehearsal before the showcase, when disaster struck. Lily arrived at the concert hall for her dress rehearsal on the actual stage. The showcase would be held the next evening in this very room, with critics, board members, and invited guests filling the 300 seats. Today was their chance to get comfortable with the space and the acoustics. As Lily walked onto the stage, the sight of the grand piano, larger and more imposing than any she had played before, made her stomach flutter with nerves. But she had prepared for this. She was ready. She sat on the bench, adjusted her position, and placed her hands on the keys. The first notes of her piece rang out, clear and confident. Then halfway through the second measure, her right hand seized up in a painful cramp. Lily stopped playing, flexing her fingers. It was just nerves, she told herself. She began again. This time, she made it further into the piece before both hands began to tremble. The notes became uneven, clumsy. Her fingers felt like they belonged to someone else, stiff and uncooperative. From the audience, Patricia called out, "Lily, what's happening?" "I don't know," Lily admitted, her voice shaking. "My hands, I can't seem to control them." Patricia came onto the stage and examined Lily's hands. "How long have you been practicing today?" "I got up early, maybe 6 hours. Patricia frowned. "And yesterday?" "About the same. I wanted to be perfect for today." "You've overworked your muscles," Patricia said bluntly. "This is what happens when enthusiasm outpaces wisdom. You should have known better." The criticism stung, but Lily knew she was right. In her determination to prove herself worthy, she had pushed too hard for too long. "Can I still perform tomorrow?" she asked, trying to keep the desperation from her voice. Patricia sighed. "Rest your hands completely for the remainder of today. Ice them if they're painful. No playing, not even air piano. And tomorrow we'll see." Lily spent a miserable evening in her apartment, her hands wrapped in cold compresses, tears of frustration threatening to spill. How could she have been so foolish? She had been given this incredible opportunity, and now she might lose it because she hadn't taken proper care of her body. Zoe tried to comfort her. "It's not the end of the world. Your hands will heal." "But what if they don't heal by tomorrow? The showcase is everything. It's my one chance to what? Be discovered? Become famous overnight?" Zoe shook her head. "That's not how it works, Lily. If you miss this performance, there will be others. David saw something in you that doesn't disappear because of one bad day." Lily knew Zoe was trying to help, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she was watching her dreams slip away. The morning of the showcase, Lily woke early. She lay in bed, afraid to test her hands. Finally, she sat up and slowly flexed her fingers. The pain was gone, but would the stiffness return when she tried to play? She arrived at the concert hall 2 hours early. The stage was being prepared, lights adjusted, programs arranged on seats. David spotted her and came over immediately. "How are you feeling?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. "Better, I think, but I won't know for sure until I try to play." He led her to a practice room off the main stage. "Take it slowly. No heroics today." Lily sat at the piano, took a deep breath, and began to play. Not her showcase piece, but a simple scale. Her fingers moved smoothly. She tried a more complex passage, then another. No pain, no stiffness. Relief flooded through her. "I think I'm okay," she told David. "It feels normal again." "Good. But pace yourself during the warm-up." "And Lily?" His eyes were serious. "It's natural to be nervous. Everyone backstage tonight will be fighting their own battles with fear. The difference between professionals and amateurs isn't the absence of fear. It's the ability to perform despite it." Hours later, dressed in a simple black dress borrowed from Zoe, Lily waited in the wings. Ava had already performed, playing a hauntingly beautiful piece that earned enthusiastic applause. Now Ben was on stage, his cello singing with emotion born from years of pain and redemption. Thomas would go next. Then Lily would close the showcase. As the final performer, she felt an added pressure. She would be the last impression the audience took away. Her hands were steady, but her heart raced. In the audience sat people who could open doors for her or close them forever. People who might dismiss her as a novelty, a waitress playing at being a musician. People like Henderson waiting for her to fail. Ben's piece ended to warm applause. Thomas took the stage with his unconventional percussion setup, full of confidence as always. While he performed, Lily closed her eyes, mentally reviewing her piece one last time. Then Thomas was finished, and a stagehand was motioning to Lily. It was time. As she walked onto the stage, the bright lights momentarily blinded her. She couldn't see the audience, couldn't tell who was watching. In that moment, it struck her that perhaps this was a blessing. Tonight, she would play not for critics or board members or even for David. She would play for herself, for the pure joy that had sustained her through years of deferred dreams. Lily sat at the piano, adjusted the bench, and placed her hands on the keys. She took one deep breath, then began to play. The moment Lily's fingers touched the keys, something shifted inside her. The lights, the audience, the pressure, it all faded away. There was only the music flowing through her like a river that had finally found its path to the sea. Her composition began gently, like a question being asked in the quietest voice. Then it built, layer upon layer, as if the question were being answered in increasingly confident tones. All those late nights after long shifts, all those early mornings before work, all the years of playing alone in her tiny apartment, everything had led to this moment. Lily closed her eyes, letting muscle memory guide her fingers. The piece moved into its middle section, where dissonance created tension before resolving into harmony. This was the part that had given her the most trouble during practice, the part where Patricia had made her repeat passages until her hands ached. But now, on this stage, the difficult sections flowed effortlessly. In the audience, faces that had been skeptical were now leaning forward in their seats. Henderson, the doubtful board member, had removed his glasses and was rubbing the bridge of his nose, his eyes never leaving the stage. David stood at the back of the hall, arms crossed, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. As Lily moved into the final movement of her piece, something unexpected happened. The music began to transform. Notes that weren't in the written composition emerged beneath her fingers, as if the piano itself were suggesting new directions. She hadn't planned these changes, hadn't rehearsed them, yet they felt right, more right than what she had originally written. Lily surrendered to this spontaneous evolution, letting the music become what it needed to be, rather than what she had decided it should be. The piece grew more powerful, more personal, building toward a conclusion that felt like both an arrival and a beginning. When the final notes faded, the concert hall fell completely silent. For one terrible moment, Lily thought she had failed. Then someone began to clap, then another person, and suddenly the entire audience was on their feet. The applause washed over her like a wave, carrying with it shouts of "Bravo!" and "Encore!" Lily rose from the bench, legs trembling, and faced the audience. Through the bright lights, she could make out Zoe jumping up and down in the third row. Vincent was there too, clapping wildly alongside the restaurant staff who had come to support her. And in the front row, Patricia was smiling. Actually smiling, her usual stern composure softened by what looked suspiciously like pride. David joined Lily on stage, along with the other 3 musicians. They linked hands and took a bow together. The applause continued, showing no signs of diminishing. "I told you," David whispered to Lily as they straightened. "They hear what's special about you now." In the reception that followed, Lily found herself surrounded by people eager to speak with her. Critics wanted to know about her influences. Donors wanted to introduce themselves, and fellow musicians wanted to discuss potential collaborations. "Ms. Chen." A familiar voice cut through the crowd. Henderson stood before her, his earlier skepticism replaced by a grudging respect. "I must admit I had my doubts about David's unconventional selection process, but your performance tonight was remarkable." "Thank you," Lily replied, unsure how else to respond. "I'd be interested in hearing more of your work. Perhaps we could arrange a private recital for some friends of mine." Before Lily could answer, an elegant woman in a red dress approached. "Excuse me," she said to Henderson. "I need to borrow Ms. Chen for a moment." She guided Lily away from the crowd toward a quieter corner of the reception room. "I don't believe we've been introduced," the woman said. "I'm Eleanor Walsh, director of the Hayes Foundation." Lily recognized the name immediately. The Hayes Foundation was one of the most prestigious arts organizations in the country, known for supporting innovative new talent. "Your piece tonight was extraordinary," Eleanor continued. "Raw in places, yes, but genuinely moving. The foundation has a residency program for emerging composers." "I'd like you to apply." Lily struggled to find her voice. That's incredibly kind, but I don't have the qualifications you usually." Eleanor waved away her concerns. "After what I heard tonight, I'm not interested in your resume. I'm interested in your music." She pressed a business card into Lily's hand. "Think about it. The deadline is next month." The evening continued in a blur of introductions and congratulations. Thomas cornered her by the champagne table, grinning broadly. "Not bad for a waitress," he said, clinking his glass against hers. "You shut up all the doubters tonight, including me. Sorry about being such a jerk before." "It's okay," Lily replied. "You weren't entirely wrong. I did get lucky." "Nah," Thomas shook his head. "Luck might get you in the door, but it doesn't make you play like that. That was all you." By the time Lily and Zoe returned to their apartment in the early hours of the morning, Lily's phone was filled with messages from people she'd met at the reception, all expressing interest in her work. "I can't believe this is happening," she said, collapsing onto the couch. 24 hours ago I was terrified my hands wouldn't work. Now I have the director of the Hayes Foundation asking me to apply for a residency." "Believe it," Zoe said firmly. "This is real, and you earned it." The days that followed were a whirlwind of meetings, interviews, and new opportunities. A music blog published a glowing review of the showcase, singling out Lily's performance as a revelation, seamlessly blending classical traditions with contemporary sensibilities. Local radio stations requested interviews. David arranged for her to perform at a larger venue the following month. And then there was Patricia, who called Lily into her office a week after the showcase. "You've received a lot of attention," she said without preamble. "How are you handling it?" "Honestly, I'm a little overwhelmed," Lily admitted. Patricia nodded. "That's normal. Success can be as disorienting as failure, especially when it comes suddenly." She fixed Lily with her penetrating gaze. "The question now is, what will you do with it?" "I'm not sure yet. There are so many offers, so many possibilities. My advice? Don't say yes to everything. Choose carefully. Build your career with intention." Patricia's expression softened slightly. "And don't forget to keep practicing. Talent got you noticed, but it's discipline that will keep you relevant." As Lily left Patricia's office, her phone buzzed with a text from Vincent. "Table 12 asking for you. Should I tell them our star pianist no longer waits tables?" Lily smiled and texted back, "Tell them I'll be in tomorrow for my regular shift." Despite all that had happened, Lily wasn't ready to leave Bellini's just yet. The restaurant had been her anchor for years, and the people there were like family. Besides, she knew how quickly fortunes could change in the arts world. One successful performance didn't guarantee a sustainable career. The next day, dressed in her server's uniform, Lily moved between tables with the same grace she had always shown. But something was different now. She stood taller, smiled more freely. The customers were no longer distant figures from a world she could only observe. They were fellow travelers on a path she too was walking. "Aren't you the pianist from the showcase last week?" asked a woman at table 7. "I thought I recognized you. Your piece was beautiful." "Thank you," Lily replied, filling her water glass. "Can I tell you about tonight's specials?" Later, during her break, Lily sat at the restaurant's piano. Vincent had suggested she play a few pieces during the dinner service, a new arrangement that allowed her to keep her job while showcasing her talent. As her fingers found the keys, she thought about how far she had come, from playing alone in her apartment to performing on a prestigious stage, from being invisible to being seen, from serving the elite to joining their ranks, while remaining connected to where she came from. The piece she played wasn't the complex composition from the showcase. It was something simpler, a melody she had written years ago when she first started working at Bellini's. A hopeful tune about dreams deferred but not abandoned. A few tables away, a young woman watched her play, a look of recognition in her eyes, not recognition of Lily as the pianist from the showcase, but recognition of something more profound. The possibility that hidden talents could be discovered, that unseen paths could open, that lives could transform in unexpected ways. Lily caught the woman's eye and smiled. Perhaps one day she too would make the journey from table to triumph. And if she did, Lily would be there to applaud,